well, I like the saying that there's no spiritual life and material life or worldly life. It's all spiritual. I mean, that's the path of the yogi, of the initiate. Everything in life is part of our spiritual life. Everything. And so I like taking the energy of the day or the week and looking at it. And so tomorrow is President's Day. Now you might say, so what's spiritual about that? Let's play with it a little bit and let's see if we can find what's spiritual about that. First of all, have you ever thought about the fact that our country is 200 years old and change, and yet it's been one of the great influencers, good or bad, on the planet for, at least 75 years? When do we come into what we would call one of the great powers? Isn't that a little quick? Have you thought about it? There is a divine mission. This country was set up by the holy ones for a particular purpose. Now, it's not hard to see what that is, right? Freedom. Freedom, people, the people ruling. So the blueprint was laid a long time before the country started getting etched out. And then what happened is, for those of you who have never heard of it, there's a sort of an organization of some of the great ones that have been on the planet that have matured. They're initiates, some of them are great masters, some of them great saints, and they're called the Great White Brotherhood. We think that name is very 3D. I think I'm going to suggest a new name. But the white, it has nothing to do with skin color. It has everything to do with the white light being the power, the powerful Christed energy. And then, of course, brotherhood is just it's sisterhood and brotherhood, because there are women on as well. But anyway, so the Ascended Masters, as we like to call them, are a group that have been definitely not only guiding this country, and other countries too, but we're focusing on this one because tomorrow's our President's Day. And they have been actually sending some of their own down onto the planet periodically to when great changes need to take place. And I thought, if you'd like, I enjoy history, and so I was wondering if you would like to look with me at a couple of those members of this great white brother and sisterhood that came. Now, of course, one is really obvious. It isn't a president, but I think he deserves a mention, and that was Benjamin Franklin. Amazing. There was a lot of amazing initiates that came around the inauguration of the Declaration of Independence. A lot of great ones. They had to come because we needed superhuman strength to be able to say no thank you to the British. So they needed people with divine consciousness. So one of the very first president was one of these initiates, great soul, George Washington. And one of his experiences, he was, of course, gathering the country together, the 13 colonies, to get ready for the Revolutionary War. And he had a visitation from an angel. Now, one of the reasons, I just want to back up a little, one of the reasons that I'm going into this is because each one of us, as we go through these couple of initiates, you're going to see some similarity to your own life. Maybe not in the grand scale where your decisions will affect a country or whether you're directly serving the higher or not, but to whatever degree, each one of these stories is our own story. So I would like you to look at it like that. So here, George Washington had some really serious decisions to make, and he spent quite a bit of time in prayer. And so what happened was he had a visitation. And this is from his diary. In the very, very dark days, and doesn't this happen to us? In our very dark days, if we turn to spirit, a person or a spiritual experience, something comes into our life to shine a little light. And in this case, it was an angel. His was a vision of the future of the great nation arising on the American continent. An angel, and this is his words, a singularly beautiful female appeared to him. A new influence, mysterious, potent, irresistible, took possession of me. Now this is George Washington from his diary. Everything about me seemed to rarefy. So she came in and lifted him to her vibration. The mysterious visitor herself becoming more airy and yet more distinct to my sight than before. And then I heard a voice saying, "Son of the Republic, look and learn." And a remarkable scene, a dark, shadowy being like an angel standing on rather floating in midair between Europe and America, unfolded a vision representative of the American Revolution and America's ultimate victory. And this angel, he goes on in detail. The angel went to show him also the Civil War. And also a third calamity that would hit the United States before she came into her full power. Now, we're not going to go into that one because it's my understanding that you and I get to determine whether we face that one or not. And everybody else on the country and on the planet right now, we spiritualize. We uplift our own consciousness, and the third one does not have to happen. I even think that it may have been sidestepped already. But he was shown these things. And at the end, he said, I found myself once more gaping upon the mysterious visitor who, in the same voice that I had heard before, said, "Son of the Republic, what you have seen is thus interpreted. These great perils will come upon the Republic, but let every child," she goes on, "but which the whole world united could not prevail against her." The whole world united cannot prevail against not the small citizen, but the ideals of the nation. And in closing, the angel said, "Let every child of the Republic learn to live for his or her God, their land, and the Union." Let every soul let every child of the Republic learn to live and love the divine and the gift that this land, this Republic is. Now, if we could bring this energy to network news, I think we'd have a little change of consciousness, right? But we as yogis, let's hold on and look at the truth. So there's George Washington. I don't think you're going to be too surprised at where we go next, but I think you might be a little surprised about where we're going in the third. So where we're going next, anybody take a guess? Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln. But here's what happened. Now, to him, he was definitely a great initiate. Again, it takes someone, you don't wake up in a lifetime, you don't come in a child's body and wake up and say, I think I'll free the slaves. What a great idea, vote for me. That soul was chosen way beforehand and had many an incarnation in preparation for being able to stand up and do what he did. And if you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie. It'll show you what inner strength it took from many. But what we don't know is that after his election, And remember that he lost every election. Every time he tried to be a senator or ran for public office, he lost. But he never gave up. Because he knew somewhere deep inside, he knew his mission. And he didn't let anything, including what people would call defeat, stop him. There's another one for us, isn't it? How many times do we trip and then we go, oh, I'm afraid. What will they think of me? Will I get hurt if I do something against the crowd? Huh? So here's the burden he had. Now was an initiate, so not only did he know that he was going to become president, or at least lead the charge to end slavery in the United States, but he also knew the night of that he got elected, he was exhausted. He walked into his library and just laid down very exhausted on his couch. And all of a sudden, he had a vision. And actually, so what happened? So he saw himself, and it was sort of like if you would look in the mirror and you would soften your gaze, you'd begin to see a double image, wouldn't you? And he saw that double image in his mind's eye, and he could see that one of the images was gray, and one of them was clear and filled with light. And he kind of shook himself, and but again, the vision came even clearer, and again, even clearer. And he went to the mirror, and he saw it. And it really unnerved him. He knew it was a message. And he went to his wife. And she was quite good. Mary Todd was quite good about interpreting his visions. And she knew. She said, and she can imagine how hard it was for her to say this to him. She said, this shows that you will have a second term. You will be reelected. And you will die. You will not make it. That gray. And so there was a part of him, he said during his, this was actually, and again, this was found in his journal. And it was, after his assassination, it was printed, but it said, years after seeing the spooky vision of himself and his pale double in the mirror, Lincoln had a nightmare in which he visited the lower level of the White House, which was decorated for a funeral. He asked whose funeral, and he was told that the president had been murdered. Within weeks, he was assassinated. So very often the initiates, and you look like the great initiate Jesus and some of the others, they know when they're going to leave. They know how they're going to leave. Can you imagine how much courage? So if we can take fragrance from each one of their paths, from Lincoln, knowing full well what he was facing, he did his job anyway. And maybe if you do see the movie, you could see how one-pointed he was to get, he knew as a lawyer, he knew how they could defeat his Emancipation Proclamation, that would easily be declared illegal. He had to get it in the Constitution. He had to rewrite the Constitution. And his last weeks were fought. He fought. Did everything he could to rewrite that Constitution so that when he was dead, they couldn't undo it. And that was his mission, sent by the divine. So again, it doesn't mean anything unless we take it in. What's your mission? What fears do you have to face to do your mission? What do you need to do? Lincoln said many a time that he had nowhere to face, nowhere to go in the darkest hours of his presidency, but on his knees to God. If we haven't been there lately, in our troubles, in our challenges, I suggest we go. So there's one more, and I don't think you can guess this one unless you've heard me talk about him before, if you come to my metaphysics class. And so, anybody got a guess? No, not Roosevelt. Eisenhower. Here's another one. Trained in the military. But the military isn't spiritual. Is that a thought we've had? Is that a belief? Military is something that wages war. Dwight Eisenhower, if you read his talks, he knew that it was for defense and to keep peace, not to wage war. As a matter of fact, you know what he said? He said, I believe people who talk about peace academically, but who never had to dive in a ditch when I think it's called a Messerschmitt 109 came over, they really don't know what peace is. He was a man who realized that peace and equality and love. So, his role as an initiate, and again, are you starting to get a feel for what you're going for in your own life? I know it's my karma, huh? Thank you, Dave. My karma starts sinking down. I don't want to think about what that means. So, for those of you who don't know, Dwight Eisenhower was one of the generals. He was the general so Hitler was just raining hell in Europe. And there was no way to fight him off except to literally go on to just go there and launch an invasion. So Dwight Eisenhower was in charge. Remember, he was a member of the Great White Brotherhood of the Masters. He was sent down here. But we don't know if he had a collective memory, if he knew who he was. But he knew why he was here, just like Lincoln. He knew what he was meant to do. And he had the whole of the Allied forces under his command. And he talked everybody, including Winston Churchill, we've got to do it. We've got to invade Normandy. And he spoke to them with reserve, but they said behind closed doors, he wrote out his fears. He smoked endless cigarettes and drank endless coffee. He couldn't sleep. Because can you imagine the weight of that kind of decision on his shoulders? And no matter how he doubted, no matter how he feared, no matter, he didn't look and think, well, how will history look upon me? No matter how weak in the knees, he knew that it was his mission from the divine, and he did it. And he did it. He said his mother told him that God deals the cards, but it was up to him to play them. And that's how he decided to play them. And he would scribble on notes of paper as the night that the soldiers started crossing the English Channel toward Normandy. He would scribble them on pieces of paper, and he asked his assistants to burn them, and they didn't. So we have some of his great thoughts, and we have his great thoughts, but we also have his fear thoughts. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Do it for the vision, pray, meditate, get your direction, and let nothing stop you. And so when he became president, he had served 2 terms. And he said, throughout America's adventure in free government, that's a great way of putting it, isn't it? Our basic purposes have been to keep the peace, to foster progress and human achievement, and to enhance liberty, dignity, and integrity among people and among nations. Sounds like an initiate, doesn't it? Sounds like a spiritual goal. Someone who's been given spiritual directives. It doesn't sound like what we consider to be politics, does it? But this is what's woven in to our country. He said, to strive for less would be unworthy of a free and religious people. Any failure traceable to arrogance or a lack of comprehension or readiness to sacrifice would inflict upon us grievous hurt, both at home and abroad. Any failure traceable to arrogance, to our lack of comprehension of understanding the divine will for us, or readiness to sacrifice, would inflict upon us grievous hurt both home and abroad. So at the end of this service today, I just we'll read our closing prayer will be the last thing he said to the nation as a president, because I think if you just read it as a closing prayer, that's exactly what it is. So maybe my intention, I'm going to send it to Tom now, but my intention is to let's take a little of our resentment out of our politics. Forget and not focus so much on what is now, but keep our eye on the future, what we're creating for our children and grandchildren, and let us consider ourselves to be initiates, part of the great sister and brotherhood of Source, of the divine, serving humanity to do our little part. Connected, we can change the country, we can change the world.
So tomorrow, then, we celebrate that higher self of each of us as well, who is our leader, our fearless leader, is our higher self. Enlightened leader, our higher self. And talk about, Trish had this first book out, and I don't know if you saw it, but it is the Bhagavad Gita. That thing about George Washington was placed in Paramahansa Yogananda's Bhagavad Gita, in an interesting book to have a quote from George Washington, right? But really not, since he was just faced with, these, just as Lincoln and just as Eisenhower faced with just, major, like, God, we would feel such a weight if we had those decisions, and you know what? We do. Because the world of you is the world outside of you. We don't reflect too often, I don't think, that ourselves are the laborers in our world. Ourselves, our bodily selves, and there's trillions of laborers. And you can think of your feelings, because they have that feeling, that is the most inherent, deepest God part of ourselves is feeling, or chitta. It says it was the first primordial element that came from spirit when it started to create, is this idea of chitta, or feeling. So your feelings, we can say that that's kind of like the, I don't know, like the business class, the business that's really on a high, authentic, and integrous level is the feelings. The workers, we could say, are the thoughts that we have. And then the higher self and its government within us is the enlightened leadership, or the wisdom that we've accrued through all of our lifetimes, right? So just like a nation, is just an outer reflection of an individual. And as Trish mentioned, it just doesn't happen overnight. We don't happen overnight either. We have been in really serious wars and conflicts, as you know. And we've died on battlefields. We've died in really the strangest way, and we've been really pissed off, so to speak, when we slipped on a banana peel. Right? How many times have we gone out and was like, oh, are you kidding me? That you probably ring true into your consciousness, those words. Are you kidding me? Right? You mean, Lord, I am going to go out this way? Isn't my life more important than that? And then as soon as you go down that rabbit hole with your thoughts, then this great light, embraces you. And you go, oh, okay. You start to realize there's something more than my thoughts and my cells, and my feelings. There's something much more. In fact, I'm not them at all. I'm this superpower, intelligence, that is everything and everyone. It is a great light. It is the one from whence the angels come from. It's a place from whence your intuitions come from, when you are still and receptive and open. Just open. I love those California poppy flowers, because in the spring we'll have plenty of them because of this rain that we've been having. But, as soon as they get a glimpse of the sun as it's rising in the day, they go, and there they are, like they open to the sun. And then all day long, they just follow the sun. Like this. Right? Totally in allegiance to the sun. And then when the sun goes down, they close up. And that is, that is our leader. We want to have that allegiance, I think. We want our world to be so harmonized, the cells, the thoughts, the feelings, the wisdom. Married to a cause. Married to a cause. And I know we all have causes, And have you ever felt the energy? Have you ever felt the exuberation or the lightness or something that's not of this world come when you just decide on something like really much, much bigger than yourself? And it's a really noble cause. And then if you should be so fortunate as to be really selfless about that there's nothing in it for you, you just feel this deep core something inside of you that says, I need to give myself to this cause. You will believe what the support comes to you. That's why the Lincolns and the Washingtons and the Eisenhowers and who knows what else, in fact, people, all of you. How many visits have you had? Yes, so many visits. And how many visits come to you every single day, but we're not quite receptive to them? Because that is the nature of this world, my friends. It's all spirit. And spirit manifests down. And even on these more dense realms, like this realm of duality, spirit is so prevalent. Because wouldn't you as a mom or dad be around your children if you knew they were in not so good at good company and not good places? You'd do everything in your power until you realize, no, it's their choice. If they choose to be there, there's nothing that I can do. So you got to know there's so many angels, there's so many beautiful, beautiful opportunities every single breath that we breathe. Because the only thing that this enlightened leader is allegiant, is totally in fealty to the Supreme One that we talked about when we started this morning. Just the one. So your higher self, there's something higher. And there's something else higher than this creation, And there's something else higher than the Lord that created this creation. That was just a duty. The spirit separated itself and say, here's a part of me that needs to create. But the spirit right now, it's like, See? Did you get that? It's like a Zen thing. Because your mind's going to go, like, what is I don't know. I don't know, because it's beyond classification. It's beyond what the intellect or you and me in this state of consciousness can really, it's pure spirit. It's beyond it's unmanifested pure spirit, And it's like hard for a human, and you and me as we dress up each day and to know that the reality is non-physical. The reality is formless. Oh my goodness. What? And as soon as we forget that and identify with this physical form, which is the illusion, because everything is unmanifested pure spirit. It's the illusion in the sense that forms come and go. They rise and fall, right? A wave rises and falls. How many births and deaths have we had? How many breaths? It's like a life. Inhale, exhale, that's a life. And it goes about that fast, doesn't it? A whole lifetime, just like that. So we're living in, this amazing opportunity, this wonderland actually, with so many divine beings around us, not to mention that our own being itself is a perfect, omnipresent aspect of spirit. And it's 24 inches above our head, like a little satellite or a spaceship, right? And it guides what? It guides the soul. So the soul is living in your cerebrum. It's in body. That's the divine indweller in body in you. So, but the soul is totally just sourcing source through the higher self. So this hierarchy, this government that we have is amazing too. So each one of you could write a classic love story, love and war, just through your own life experiences through many, many incarnations. So as Trish mentioned though, this World War III thing, or this third thing that could happen, oh my gosh, we have an immersion in love going on. This is our 4th day. And by the way, you're surrounded by 28 people who are in silence today. And some of them for the very first time in this life. And you should have seen their faces when I said we were going to be in silence today. What? And I said, wait, when we've seen Trish and I in all these immersions that we've done and workshops and retreats, that the people who have the best experiences. But anyway, so there's kind of, and that's the core of this existence, is pure silence. That's the core of you. It's just like, stillness, just like these visions we're talking to Lincoln and Washington, not through the words that you and I use, but through telepathy, so to speak, intuitionally. So anyway, as you sit here right now, there is just so many of you that are just right at the brink of these major, major discoveries of who you really, really are. And so this immersion I was talking about, a very interesting thing that I haven't told this group yet, but what we're going to do is, and we do it every time, is first of all, we choose if we want to elect the president of our higher self to be the president of me, first of all. Or campaign, or maybe next year, right? My higher self can run if I still have people to see and things to do, right? But eventually you're going to have one hell of a campaign for the greatest cause that any human can ever have, and that is liberation or freedom from these three realms of suffering, physical, mental, and emotional realms of suffering, because you're not that. And when you identify with it, we are going to be guided by the ego, and the ego only has one path for us to follow, misery. So you will really get on the campaign trail. I believe we all are here, because I know there's some really amazing souls in this room right now, amazing souls. But anyway, so what we ask them to do is to, now I'm going to be addressing this group later today, is to write their inaugural address. So they've campaigned, they've been elected, the cells voted, the feelings voted, the thoughts voted. Some of it was close. It was close. Some of those thoughts not quite, but they won. They won this election. And now they're addressing the union, right? Because it's all about the union, their nation, the oneness, right? With their first inaugural speech. And here's why we're going to be okay and that third thing is not going to happen. Here's why. So if I'm going to introduce two of the participants in our immersion who are doing it for the second time, right? A lot of people, they do one workshop. I did that workshop, right? The learning has just stopped in that workshop. And then I do this work and the learning stops there. Anyway, I want to ask if Trent and Tanner can stand up. All right. All right. 12 and 14, baseball, sports, they have a life, but they've been in 2 immersions, all right? So this is why it's going to be okay, guys. But I want you to hear from the horse's mouth, if Trent wouldn't mind, because when he did his inaugural address, last immersion, I know you know what that is. I know you know what that is, Trent. I would like you to let these people know.
Come here, Trent. Do you
when
mind?
you stood up at the podium, what you said to the nation of yourself.
Do you remember?
You remember, man.
Okay.
Should I say?
Yeah?
Yeah, say it loud.
Get your pony and come with me.
That's it. That's it. Get your pony and come with me. Do you remember what you said, Tanner?
I don't think I said anything.
All right, that's all right. You lead by example, my friend. You totally lead by example. So anyway, it's heaven above, earth below is heaven above. Why don't all of us do that? First of all, you're willing to campaign for yourself. And for the highest cause, that there is no higher cause. Freedom, liberation, knowing in every fiber of your being that you are divine. And to elect that higher self, win the election. So you have to be convicted. You really have to say, I'm making a stand. You know how it is if you don't make a stand. We don't go anywhere fast if you're procrastinating. You think, what would our country be like, or any country, or anything that has been achieved in this planet? It's very tough to achieve noble things, because that dark cloud is very, very dark and wants to make sure that we don't achieve. But how could we have come this far without people saying, I'm going to sacrifice for this. I will die for this. I give my every breath to this. And that's just between you and Divine Mother or God. That's between you and me. And don't, see, we go into the weeds so fast. We call that in our immersion, here we go loop-de-loo, here we go loop-de-la. Do you remember that song? Probably not, because all of you are going, what? Anyway, the loop-de-loo thinking, right? Here come the thoughts, here come the lower feelings, and they just go around like this. Meanwhile, your higher self is just sitting there going, I love you, baby. I love you, baby. I'm always here for you, and I'm the only one that believes in you. And I want you to so much believe in yourself that you are much more than this thinking that you are doing right now. So that you can then write your inaugural speech. And I would write it really soon, because I don't know how close we are to anything. All I know is that I'm doing what I'm telling you. That's all I'm taking accountability for. Because a lot of us have a pretty not so good image of ourselves. And that also has to kind of be given over to the higher self so that you can realize you've always been a higher self. And then write your inaugural address, and then the final thing is, don't take sides. Because the enlightened leader of you, there's just one side to take. And that is the high road. That is the road. And I'll end with this. This is kind of weird, right? But my eyes just can't help but catch the news. Because I go, look at Yahoo News just briefly, and I go on my computer. And then as I go into these public places, and the TV's on, and CNN, and then the cabin's burning, and the fugitive. I mean, a lot of people, it was like, I call my mother, and I said, and she's always saying, call me. And I called her, and she said, what do you want? I'm watching, and she was like totally right there. So, Mom, I'll call you later. I mean, this is reality TV for her. But how many, and this is where I'm thinking, where you and I can be that noble soul and that real enlightened leader of ourselves. No, because we saw a film in there where a person tried to commit suicide, and she had a near-death experience, and she was in arms of the angel, and all the angel did was love her and accept her and love her. So, hey, whoever you think is bad and wrong out there, right, is something that in you needs a lot of healing. Number one. But number two, how many people see that guy that went through that, and many, many more, and there will be many, many more, and see him, his soul, in the arms of love, instead of going into the loop-de-loo thinking and the drama of it all? You would save yourself years on your life, if you don't go loop-de-loo. And you went straight to higher self. And the final thing, I know I said that, but there was one guy, had the near-death experience, and he's 20, only 20, he was in the army, and he was in the presence, what he said was the presence of God. And that presence of God asked him this, and said, what have you done to glorify me? And he said, whoa, because that whole panorama is coming around, he's looking, and there's like, not anything. So he pulled out one thing out of the hat of his whole panorama of his life up to 20. And he said, I became an Eagle Scout. Not bad, right? And that presence said, that glorified you. What have you done with your life to glorify me? And you know what his next words were? He said what that presence was telling me, to love my brothers and sisters the way that Source loves them.